Hello my friends, I'm Jean-Michel Grosjeu and this is my 5th video in a series of 7 about Stationfall, a game by Matecloun published by Iron Games. And if you are still watching this video, that's because I'm sure you love this game and its zany world as much as I do. In my previous video, we began together the overview of all characters in the game with a first batch of 12. Now, I propose we go on with 12 more, 5 robots, the medical robot, the security robot, the drones, the Consort and the Cyborg, then the Botanist, the Daredevil, the Border, the Doctor, the Exile, the Billionaire, and finally, the so weird Corpsicle. I'll keep the last 3 characters for the next video because they are the most complex and rules heavy. That being said, and without further ado, let's start with the medical robot. The first robot in our gallery, and what does it change? In terms of game rules, it doesn't change much. The only great difference is that robots don't fear hazards, neither fire nor asphyxiation. I let you watch my first 3 videos to get a glimpse of other subtle changes. Okay. And this medical robot, as you guess, was built by the mega corporation to take care of people inside the station. And now that the station is falling, it doesn't change anything, and the medical robot keeps doing its business as long as it is still in working order. It doesn't have so much empathy, you know. It was built to heal, so it heals as many people as possible. And thus, its victory points depend on its healing score. There is a special heal counter that players must use as soon as the medical robot is in play. Of course, this counter must be used even before knowing if any player has chosen it as his main character. The counter begins out of the medical robot's card. Its value is 0, no healing yet. Then, every time the medical robot revives a down human, this counter is increased by 1. And it earns 1 victory point at the end of the game for every star reached by the counter on its healing table. As you see, if for example it heals 7 human characters during the game, that gives 5 stars, so 5 victory points, for a maximum of 7 victory points if it heals 11 characters or more. Note that it also gets a bonus of 2 victory points if there is no down human on board at the end of the game, whatever the value of the healing counter. Okay, but 11, this is far too much, isn't it? How can it do that? First, of course, it has a special ability, emergency response, to heal people. With it, it can do the revive action on any down human, but without nanogel. The medical robot doesn't need nanogel. Okay, but still, 11 characters is huge. And perhaps you guess that a good strategy for the medical robot should be to get a weapon and hit some human down for 1 action and heal him just afterwards as its second action. It probably doesn't comply with Asimov's 3 laws of robotics, but who cares? It is worth 1 box on the healing track. Okay, so you just have to get a weapon. And look, as soon as you reveal the medical robot as your secret identity, you get a bludgeon for free. Hitting people to heal them afterwards is definitively the best thing to do. Note that it doesn't work on robots. The medical robot only heals humans. And because this robot is programmed for emergency, whenever it takes a step or airlock action to enter a section with a down human, this movement action is free. So, in this example, the medical robot can freely move through 3 sections thanks to 3 down humans and still use 2 actions to hit the microbiologist with its bludgeon and immediately heal her for 1 more point on its healing track. Fine, now, because the medical robot is made to help everyone without distinction, it has the helpful ability so no player can have more than 1 influence cube on its card. So, everyone who wants its help to heal some human character puts 1 cube and no more on its card. No one can increase the bid to keep the robot for his own use. And when a player finally reveals that his main identity is the medical robot, let's say it takes a certain pride in having fooled all those humans. Its healing counter is increased by 1 for each opponent's cube sent to the betrayal box. Fine, and now you'll quickly understand that, like the medical robot, all robots in this station have an approximate vision of the 3 laws of robotics and respect for their human creators. Next robot in the station, the security robot, and this one is straightforward. He has a gun from the beginning of the game, an integral gun. This means that this gun cannot be removed from this robot. No rob, no pickup if it is down. The security robot's gun is an integral part of its body. The robot is also armored and cannot be hit nor robbed with a bludgeon. Only a gun can shoot it down. And thanks to this warlike equipment, its job is to shoot down the bad guys. Okay, but who are the bad guys? Simple, look, there is a list of who the security robot is hunting. And this is very important because it cannot attack any other target. This is its peacekeeper ability that is more of a constraint than a capability. So first, the fugitives. There are only 2 of them in the game, the Cyborg and the Border. Both are wanted bandits with a price on their heads, dead or alive. The security robot also hunts monsters. Monsters can be released as part of the Project X, depending on what card has been drawn at the beginning of the game. More on that in the next video. And finally, the security robot is also hunting suspect and guilty revealed characters. In this example, the security robot can attack the Daredevil, but it cannot attack the Botanist because blue player is innocent. And it cannot attack the Doctor either because it is not a revealed character, even if she is actually yellow player's secret identity. Note also that the security robot cannot damage the station. And that's exactly how it earns victory points. 1 point per down bad guy, that is monster, fugitives and non-innocent player characters. Note that a down character who escapes with a pod is always considered live again when reaching Earth, so the security robot earns points only for down bad guys still inside the station at the end. Okay, at best there is 1 monster on board, 1 or 2 fugitives and up to 3 non-innocent characters in a 4-player game, so this won't give many points. Luckily, if a player reveals the security robot as his main character, it is no longer bound by his peacekeeper trait. It can shoot anyone. Okay, but why? Because, look, it can expand its definition of what is a bad guy and earn 1 victory point for each down human with a weapon in his inventory, a bludgeon or a gun. So, it can shoot this chimpanzee, for example, just because the monkey has a gun in his inventory. Even better, the security robot can shoot the microbiologist, bang, and just after that, with its second action, put a bludgeon in its victim's inventory to make her a bad guy and earn 1 victory point in the end. Note on the opposite that opponent characters can remove weapons from down characters with the pickup action to deprive the security robot from its victory points. And finally, the security robot also earns points if the briefcase or the alien artifact stays on board until the end. 3 victory points if both stay on board. Note finally that a smart player can see that throwing a firebomb or gripping with the cargo claw, for example, are not attacks. And so the security robot can surely find ways to put some characters down without falling under the restrictions of its peacekeeper oath. The next robot is very special, the drones. And first, it is special because this card stands for 2 characters, 2 drones. Drone number 4 and drone number 6. Drone number 4 begins the game in the physics lab and drone number 6 in outer space fixing some issues on the station outer shields. Both drones have their own inventory with 2 boxes each. They both can hold 2 items, but one of these items is an integral bludgeon. Like the security robot who has an integral gun, you remember, the drones have each their integral bludgeon. These items cannot be dropped or picked up or given or robbed. They must stay there in their character's inventory. Both drones has also its own data slot. If one drone owns data, the other one has no reason to know it. The first drone must make a copy data action if both drones are in the same section. In other words, they act exactly as two separate characters. And up to now, that's fine. The two drones seem to work just like the three maintenance clones we already know. But no, they are in fact very different because they cannot be influenced. No cube on their card. And they cannot be activated either, in any way. They cannot be bribed and there is no compromat for them. Very strange, isn't it? But more than that, there is no identity card in their name. Let's suppose that you are playing a 4-player game. So at the beginning of the game, you draw randomly the 12 character cards you need as shown on this table. And let's suppose that among these 12 cards, there is the drone's card. So now you take the matching identity cards for all possible characters and look, there is no identity card for the drones. So when each player draws 2 identity cards for their main and bonus characters, they cannot get the drones. No player can have the drones as his main or bonus character, and that's why they have no victory conditions. Drones never get victory points. Okay, but then what are they used for? When the drones are in play, a new console action is added to the board. This is the remote control action. It is added to the usual console actions, so any character in the security station or the mainframe, the two sections with the console action, can control one drone and perform one action with it. Let's suppose the Daredevil is in the security station. I am a red player, I activate the Daredevil, and for a first action, I choose the console action remote control to take control of drone number 4 and make it step into the print shop. And with my second action, remote control on drone number 4 again to make it manufacture a helmet. Now the helmet is in drone number 4's inventory, and note that drone 4 has no free pickup or drop. This is the Daredevil's activation, so she can use these free actions, not the drone. And voila, that's how you use the drones. They can remotely do all the actions in the game, basic actions, but also section actions. And because their main use is to repair the station, they have a special ability, they can disassemble. For example, red player activates the Daredevil, and with the console action, she controls drone number 6, which is in the damage aft airlocks. With its action disassemble, drone number 6 can repair the damaged section, but at the cost of becoming down. And it can also repair down robots like that. And so, as you see, this action is very close to the jury-rig action we already know, but a little less efficient because it costs the drone to become down. Next robot, the Consort. And look as this one looks human. It was made to keep wealthy customers company. Let's say it is an artificial friend or an artificial toy. I let you imagine. It is so human-like. It can even change the shape of its face to look like anyone you could wish. But still it has its own hopes and goals. One could say it has a soul. And its main goal is simply to get out of here, to escape to the Earth. It is the only robot in the game that hopes to survive. But look, escaping gives it 0 victory point. And all its other goals are conditioned by it. They all have the plus symbol. So if the consort doesn't escape, it will have no point at all. So first, because he wants to live a new life down on Earth, it needs money. And where can it find money? In the briefcase, of course. It earns 3 victory points if it has the briefcase in its inventory. And all bitcoins on its card are worth 2 victory points in the end. Its own bitcoin and any bitcoin that another player should use for bribery. Then, because it wants to live like a human, it earns 1 more victory points if it keeps its identity secret. Beware, not revealing your identity seems easy, but that means that until the end of the game, every other player will still be able to have influence cubes on your main character and able to activate it to do a lot of things you don't want. And finally, the Consort wants at last to be alone. It earns 3 victory points if it escapes alone, that is, with nobody else in its escape pod. Okay, its goals are simple enough, and he has a few abilities to make them easier. Because it was built as a charismatic machine, it can always convince any attacker to spare its beautiful face. In game turns, it cannot be attacked by a human character with a bludgeon in a lit section. This ability doesn't protect it in a dark section or against a robot or someone with a gun. Its next capability is a funny one. Usually, if a character makes a human down in a lit section, the player activating him becomes suspect. But here, because the Consort can change its face at will, it can make any other character in the same section suspect instead. Let's see how it works. In the hydroponics, the Consort with its gun can attack and shoot down the inspector. Red player activates it and bang, the inspector is down. With lights and cameras on, red player should become suspect, but the Consort can take the appearance of the engineer who appears to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. The engineer belongs to blue and yellow players' conspiracies, so red player can choose, and it chooses to make yellow player guilty. It's not a good idea to hang out in the same places as the Consort. And finally, even if the Consort tries to hide its identity until the end, it can still decide to reveal it in order to get this capability, the shapeshift switch. Let's see that on an example. Up there, the Astro Chimp took place into an escape pod and just activated the timed launch action to release the pod to the mesosphere. Blue player's timer is on the turn track on the next turn's box. But now it's red player's turn, and he decides to reveal his secret identity. He is the Consort, and he can immediately use his shapeshift switch ability. In fact, from the beginning of the game, it took the appearance of the chimpanzee. And so, as everyone thinks that the chimpanzee is escaping with the pod, in reality, this is the Consort escaping, and the actual chimpanzee is down there in the hydroponics. And of course, they also switch their data and items. With the appearance of a chimpanzee, the Consort was actually fleeing with the briefcase. This is very powerful and this can be very confusing for other players. If the Astro Chimps is blue player's secret identity, this character swap is a catastrophe, but he could have avoided that by simply revealing the turn before that he is the chimpanzee. The shapeshift switch ability doesn't work on revealed characters. And so, when the Consort is in play, never forget that it can switch with your character at any time. And the next robot is not completely a robot. The Cyborg is in fact half robot, half human, as you can see from his splendid hybrid token. In game terms, the Cyborg is fully human and he is fully a robot at the same time. For example, when down, he can be repaired by the jury-rig ability because he is fully a robot. But he can also be revived by the medical robot because he is fully human. The Cyborg is a 200% guy. If he escapes the station chief earns 1 victory point because he is human. But the operative doesn't get a victory point because he is a robot. He can be put down by the operative EMP burst because he is a robot, but he can be eaten by the Botanist plant because he is human. Okay, but what about combat? If someone attacks the Cyborg with an attack action, the Cyborg reacts as a human, not a robot. So he can resist a bludgeon attack by wearing a helmet, and he is also only human when he meets a hazard, so he needs a helmet to resist fire or asphyxiation. Fine, and what are his objectives? What is he thinking as the station falls? He is only thinking of revenge. First of all, he wants humanity to die, and he earns 2 victory points if no human escapes the station. And in particular, the officers. 1 more victory point for each officer that is down in the station at the end. He wants to see their experiments fail, 2 victory points if the virus doesn't make it to the Earth, that is, if no contaminated character escapes, and he wants to cause havoc and destruction, 2 victory points if the Project X is released. And note that he doesn't want to survive, no victory point for escaping and saving his life. He just wants to kill and destroy. And therefore, he can win even if he is guilty. Okay, what a nice fellow, isn't he? Unluckily, the megacorporation that tinkered with his experimental body made him incredibly resistant. With the uncanny ability, he needs 2 activation tokens to be exhausted. He shares this ability with the stranger, you remember? This means, amongst other things, that if a player, let's say red player, reveals the cyborg as his secret identity, because no other player can activate him anymore, red player can activate him every turn without ever being exhausted, so 2 actions per turn until the end of the game. But being so brutal and bloodthirsty, it is not a surprise that the cyborg is a public enemy. This is the meaning of his fugitive trait. Any player that makes him down doesn't become suspect. You can attack him in a lit room before cameras and stay innocent. And remember that the security robot is especially programmed to shoot down fugitives. Fine, this is already impressive, but wait. As soon as he is revealed as a player's main character, he gets even more destructive power. First, he is so strong that with the bludgeon he can hit down a character wearing a helmet. Usually helmets protect from bludgeons, but in the hand of the cyborg, a bludgeon hits its target down, and the target's helmet and the bludgeon are both destroyed, eliminated. You can imagine how brutal it is. And finally, let's take the opposite. The chimpanzee shoots down the cyborg with his gun. It is red player's turn, and look. With his self-repair capability, red player can activate the cyborg even if he is down. Then, as his first action, he self-revives without needing nanogel, and guess what? With his second action, he hits down the monkey, and with his free pickup, he steals his gun. Always keep away from the cyborg, he is really a dangerous guy. There's one more robot to go, the legal robot, but this one is so tricky that I keep it for my next video. For now, I prefer to go back to humanity with the Botanist. The Botanist is the guy that nobody cares about. The guy the megacorporation itself forgot about in a dead end of its station, the hydroponics. The Botanist loves plants, this is the meaning of his life, and especially one plant, the big carnivorous beauty to which he gave the name Fang Moss. She begins the game by his side in the hydroponics. And now that the station is falling, his first goal is to save his life. And of course, to save Fang Moss. You can see that both these goals are on the same level. No one is more important than the other. That means that the Botanist can finally die in the station but still earn 2 victory points if his precious plant is brought to Earth by another survivor. But don't forget that Fang Moss is highly carnivorous and she needs a lot of protein to make it to the Earth. So the Botanist will earn 2 victory points for each down human that Fang Moss swallows. Note again that this is a goal in itself. If Fang Moss and the Botanist both die in the station, the Botanist player still earns 2 victory points for each human that Fang Moss eats. Okay, Fang Moss must eat people, but how does it work? Fang Moss is a square token, thus she is an item. With a pickup action, for example, the Botanist can just take Fang Moss into his inventory, and every time a character, whoever it is, has Fang Moss in his inventory, he gets a special action token, an action that is attached to Fang Moss herself. So, this is an action that the character can do only if Fang Moss is in his inventory. The Feed Me action. First, the character must be in the same section than a down human. For example, the Corpsicle character is precisely a character who begins the game down in the cryolab. So, the Botanist, in several turns with 4-step actions, goes to the cryolab. Then, with the Feed Me action, this human, Fangmo's victim, here the Corpsicle, is annihilated. That is, he is out of the game and no one can ever revive him. All items he possessed are dropped to the section. Here the Corpsicle's helmet should go to the cryolab, but it is an integral item and an integral item can never be separated from its owner. So Fangmo swallows the helmet with its owner. Then, the victim's token is kept on the Botanist card to remind that it was eaten by the carnivorous plant. At the end of the game, each such trophy is worth 2 victory points. So let's summarize. A character must own the plant in his inventory. He must share the same section as a down human, and then he can make the Feed Me action and eat the poor unconscious guy. What is unique here is that this action is not attached to a character or a section, but to an item, the plant. And this item, like any other, can be dropped, thrown, robbed, or given. That being said, the Botanist is an easy character. We already know his capabilities from other characters. He is a scientist, like the microbiologist, and this gives him a free section action every turn instead of his free pickup or drop. Note that both these scientists are so intellectually close that the Botanist will also try to save his colleague's creation, the virus. That's why he earns 1 more victory point if he is personally contaminated when escaping to Earth. And he is zero-born, like the maintenance clones. He was born in the station itself and is fully accustomed to zero gravity. He gets 1 free move action per turn if toward a green or pink section instead of his free pickup or drop. Now, if the Botanist is revealed as a player's main character, this gives a degree of freedom to Fangmos, the carnivorous plant. If the plant is left alone, out of any character's inventory, she gets 1 step action every turn. She crawls through the passageways. Isn't it frightening? And this even if the Botanist character is not activated. This action is her own action available for the player who revealed the Botanist as his secret identity. Whichever character is activated, if Fangmos is out of any inventory, she can move 1 step. And if she shares the same section as a down human character, guess what? Instead of moving 1 step, she can swallow and annihilate this victim. Note that in this example, it took her 2 turns to do that. 1 turn for the 1-step movement and another turn to hit her victim. Fangmos can only do 1 action per turn. Note also that she just swallowed the cyborg and it's okay because he is a robot but also he is fully human at the same time. So he is a valid victim for the carnivorous plant. Fine. You can now remember that after revealing his identity, the Botanist player should quickly drop the plant out of his inventory to take advantage of this bonus action. But beware, Fangmos is still an item, and if any character enters a section with a simple pickup action, he can take her into his inventory and from then, the plant cannot move or eat by herself. It is now up to her new owner to decide. And finally, if the Botanist is a player's bonus character, not his main character, this player earns 2 bonus victory points if he saves the carnivorous plant, Fangmos, to Earth. He gains nothing for saving the Botanist. Next character, the Daredevil. What a dauntless, what a fearless woman. There's never enough thrill to satisfy her craziness. She tried everything and today she's looking for a once-in-a-lifetime experience here in the Falling Station. She wants to take risk, she wants to be the best, she wants to survive, but with style. So first, she earns 3 victory points if she survives, of course, but +2 if she's the only human to survive. She wants so much to be unique. And you know what? she will be back to Earth with an alien artifact or with an unknown virus. 2 victory points for either the artifact or the contamination, no need to have both. Her fans down on Earth will be so delighted. And to give them even more mess and more show, she can release the Project X for 1 more victory point. Fine, you know how to play the Daredevil. Head first into the fray. Get the artifact or the virus, release the Project X and get out of here. But taking care to prevent others from escaping as well. How? She can sabotage the escape pods, for example. And you know why? Because she doesn't need them. Because she has her own way to flee the station. She has her rocket wings. Rocket wings are an item. It is a square token. At the beginning of the game, they are in the physics lab, out of reach from the Daredevil, who is putting on a fine suit in the locker room. Okay, so she intends to get her rocket wings and use it to glide to Earth. But beware, as any other item, rocket wings can be picked up and used by any character. And how does it work? When the Daredevil and her rocket wings are in play, a new action is added to the outer space box. This action is called Rocket Wings Launch. It is added like this. And so, if any character, let's say the Consort, is live in outer space with the rocket wings in his inventory, for one action he can just glide to the mesosphere, just like that, floating in the upper layers of the atmosphere without the need of any pod. From now on, the Consort cannot go back to the station, the game is over for him, he is back to Earth, safe and alive. Beware, in this example, it worked because the Consort is a robot and doesn't need a helmet. Humans need a helmet for a rocket wings launch. You see also in this example that nobody needs the Daredevil to glide back to Earth. When the Daredevil is in play, her rocket wings are added to the physics lab, and from then, anyone can take it and use it. Fine, back to the Daredevil. First, she is proud. That just means that nobody can rob her items from her inventory. If you want to rob her, you must hit or shoot her down and pick up her items. Also, because she's afraid of nothing, she can move into a section with fire or asphyxiation hazard without a helmet and stay live and unaffected. Better than that, because she loves danger, every move into a hazard, either a step or an airlock action, is free. Always free. For example, out of her locker room, the Daredevil can enter the burning tanks for free just because they are burning and fire is so cool. Then she must spend one action to enter the hydroponics and she takes the bludgeon with a free pickup. Then back to the tanks, this movement again is free thanks to the fire hazard. And again, one free step to the forward airlocks, this time with the help of the asphyxiation hazard. She loves danger so much. And now she can move outside with the airlock action, and always for free because she goes to outer space and there is a permanent asphyxiation hazard in outer space. So she used only one action and her free pickup, and she's up there in outer space where a rocket wings item is floating. Let's suppose that someone from her conspiracy already brought it here. With her last available action, she picks up a rocket wings. Note, and that's important to notice, that even if she can stay in outer space without a helmet, she cannot glide back to Earth with her rocket wings because the rocket wings launch action requires a helmet for humans, even the Daredevil. This is not a question of asphyxiation hazard anymore. This is for the excessive heat of atmospheric re-entry. And finally, if a player reveals the Daredevil as her secret identity, she unlocks the ultimate stunt, Point Break. If the Daredevil is live, with a helmet in her inventory, and if her rocket wings are just there in the same section and not necessarily in her inventory, at game end, when the turn marker reaches 0, she simply survives. I let you imagine the station exploding and the Daredevil grabbing her rocket wings, putting them on and gliding off into the rising sun. Note that there is always a reveal step at game end, so even if the Daredevil is not revealed, she can still reveal at the last moment and survive like this. And next, a strong woman again, the Border. She is a pirate. And what does a pirate think in front of a rich station falling to the earth? Let's go inside, loot what we can, and go home a little richer. So, the Border begins the game outside the station, in the outer space box. She has a helmet, of course, otherwise she wouldn't survive in the vacuum, and she's heavily armed with a bludgeon, in fact this is her katana, and a gun. Her inventory is already full at the beginning of the game. And her main goal is to steal the Mega Corporation treasure hidden in the famous briefcase. 4 victory points if she leaves the station with the briefcase. Okay, but take a closer look. In order to get these victory points, she must survive. She can get the briefcase in her inventory, and this in itself is a problem because her inventory is full and she must drop something to make room. Then she escapes to Earth and tada! 6 victory points. And note that she likes money so much that all bitcoins are worth 2 victory points for her. Even her own bitcoin if she keeps it until the end. Okay, but if you read again, you see that she has another way to take the money. She doesn't have to put the briefcase in her inventory. If at the end of the game the briefcase is just floating in outer space, let's say that someone from her conspiracy brought it there, that's okay for the 4 bonus victory points, assuming that on the other hand she survived. We assume that the briefcase would finally be picked up from outer space by her own spaceship. What? Her own spaceship? Yes, just like any true pirate, she has a ship. At the beginning of the game, her ship looks like a civilian rescue ship. It is put here in this special box, and look, at game end, any human character floating in outer space will be rescued by the ship. Fantastic! That's a new way for escaping the station, but only available when the Border is in play. It is very close to an escape pod, but without size limit. Any number of humans can be saved. And that works at the very end of the game. To have your seat, you just have to go to outer space. But, that's fine if no player is actually playing the Border. If a player's secret identity is the Border, as soon as he reveals, the rescue ship is flipped and it becomes the pirate ship. And then, any live human in outer space is kidnapped and will become a pirate slave for 1 victory point each. And note that for their own victory conditions, these characters are not considered as saved, unless they have the briefcase in their inventory. So let's summarize because it's getting hard to understand. If the Border is a non-player character, so if no player did choose the Border as his secret main identity, in this case the rescue ship remains a rescue ship until the end of the game, and all humans in outer space are rescued at the end of the game. But if the Border is a player character, so if any player reveals at any time that his secret identity is the Border, and note that even if he never reveals, his identity will be revealed at the end of the game at Stationfall, so this will happen. In this case, the ship is a pirate ship and all humans in outer space become slaves and give 1 victory point each to the Border. Still, any human with the briefcase in his inventory escapes. In this case, the Border still gets 1 victory point for the slave, but nothing for the briefcase. The briefcase still belongs to the human who can get some victory points from it. That's a strange situation, I agree. He escapes with the money inside the pirate ship, but I suppose still makes it to the Earth and the Border never sees the money. And finally, if the briefcase is let alone in outer space, at the end of the game, the pirate ship recovers it and it makes 4 victory points for the Border. Note that if the Border herself tries to escape through outer space, she must own the briefcase to successfully escape. Then she gets 2 victory points for escaping and 4 for the briefcase. But because she's a human in outer space, she also gets 1 more victory points for a total of 7. Fine, but it's not over. The border has the breach ability. That means that if she is adjacent to a locked passageway, for one action she can remove the lock. Note that she needs another action after that to enter the room. Also, she is a fugitive. Remember, there are 2 fugitives in the game, the Cyborg and the Border. There's a prize on her head, and everyone can hit or shoot her down without becoming suspect. And if the security robot is in play, it can shoot her despite its peacekeeper constraint. Okay, but being a public enemy can also be an advantage, and the Border can win even if she is guilty. No need to hold back, she can hit, shoot and kill without restraint. And finally, she has a secret weapon. Her pirate ship can be remotely controlled to fire missiles. But first, she must reveal. She can do that only as a player's main character. And to begin with, she must communicate with her pirate ship, and this is possible only if the station jammers are off. Okay, so let's suppose the Border is in the mainframe. With her first action, she uses the console action to shut the jammers off. And then, with her second action, she can call for a missile fire. She puts a timer on any section in the station, let's say the bridge, and this section becomes the missile's target. At the end of next red player's turn, so 1 turn later, the missile hits its target with no way to prevent it. The section is damaged and all characters in it becomes down. So she calls for a missile on a given turn, the missile explodes at the end of her next turn, and she can call another missile only from the turn after when she's got her timer token back. That means that a missile can hit and damage a section every 2 turns. Phew, this was a tough one. Next, the Doctor. Do you know the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? And guess what? This double-minded doctor is inside our station. Okay, so like any other character, she has 1 character card and she's represented on the board by 1 character token. But what is totally unique about her is that she has 2 identity cards. 1 as Dr. Jekyll and 1 as Dr. Hyde. 2 identity cards for 1 character. How is it possible? Let's look at this from the simplest angle. You draw Dr. Jekyll's identity card and choose her as your main character. You look at the right half of the character card. You earn 1 victory point if the Doctor escapes. Which Doctor? The Doctor's wooden token, there is only 1. So 1 point if she escapes. +3 if she is contaminated, and +3 again if she owns the alien artifact in her inventory. She is a true scientist and wants to save these 2 major scientific discoveries. And because she knows that ordinary people cannot understand the beauty of science, she must avoid any evidence to reach the public. 3 victory points if no evidence data ends up in the news or at the authorities. And that's a lot of potential victory points. So it's easy, isn't it? And why if you drew Dr. Hyde identity card instead? This is the left half of the card. In this case, you play with the same wooden token, but you must achieve cruelty. You must still survive for 2 victory points, but with the money in the briefcase you stole for 3 victory points, and some human, anyone you killed by sheer cruelty, any down human in the same escape pod than you, 4 victory points. Dr. Hyde is also greedy, he earns double victory points for bitcoins. So now, naturally, the following question arises. What if both identity cards are drawn? Let's say red player is Hyde while blue player is Jekyll. No problem, they just have different goals for the same character on the board. Different yet compatible objectives. If in the end the Doctor escapes, 2 points for Hyde, 1 for Jekyll. With the briefcase, 3 for Hyde, and the artifact, 3 for Jekyll. She's contaminated, 3 for Jekyll, with the down human beside, 4 for Hyde. No evidence data transmitted to Earth, 3 points for Jekyll, and let's say both red and blue players didn't use their Bitcoin, that makes 2 Bitcoins possessed by the Doctor, 4 points for Hyde. So that makes a total of 13 victory points for Hyde and 10 for Jekyll. Here, red player wins over blue player, even if both players were playing the same character. Fine, I understand all that, but how does it work on the board? How 2 players can play the same main character? In the beginning, it's easy, and like any other character, both blue and red players, and even some others like yellow, can have influence cubes on the Doctor. They all can have the Doctor in their conspiracy and activate her when needed. Okay, but because both red and blue players each owns a Doctor identity card, they both can decide to reveal her. And so some kind of mind game appears between the two of them. Who will reveal first? Let's say red player on his turn reveals his secret identity. Hey, guess what? I am Dr. Hyde. Red player gets his cubes back and all other cubes goes to the betrayal box. Even blue cubes. In some way, Hyde considers that Jekyll was betraying her inside her own mind. And the result is that blue player cannot activate the Doctor anymore. Do you imagine that? His own main character. Blue player cannot add influence cubes anymore on the Doctor's card. So the only solution for her is on her turn to reveal also her identity card. And yes, you got a character with 2 reveal tokens on her. And from now, both players can activate their shared character. And you understand that they will quickly have a problem of exhaustion, and they do better to reach some kind of agreement to achieve their respective goals without interfering too much. Each reveal, Hyde and Jekyll, unlocks a special ability. When the Hyde identity card is revealed, the Doctor immediately gets a free gun. When the Jekyll identity is revealed, she gets the artifact wherever it is, even if it is already in another character's inventory. And that's pretty much it. The Doctor is a scientist, so she gets 1 free section action per turn instead of a free pickup or drop. And she gets the Secret X data from the beginning, so as a consequence, every player who activates her can peek at the Project X card. And just a few words before the next character. You remember these 2 panels. There is only 1 Doctor Compromat token. If a player plays it, it gets 1 action with the Doctor's token on the board, easy. If the Doctor was revealed as red player, for example, anyone can play the Doctor Compromat, and red player must decide if he complies or not. And in this particular case, okay, red player can threaten herself with a compromat because of the Doctor's double mind. And if another player reveals as the Doctor her second identity, everyone who plays the compromat must choose which player to threaten, red or blue. And only this player will decide if she obeys. But if she refuses to obey the compromat, both players become suspect because in the end, both Doctors are the same physical person who can end up in jail. For bribes, it's a little bit different because if 2 players play both Doctors' identities, that means that the Doctor character has 2 Bitcoins. And if 2 players revealed, each one can bribe the other without falling under the rule of you cannot bribe yourself. Now let's hope the next one will be a little less convoluted. Here is the Exile. Once in a while, this guy was an important figure, someone who mattered in the megacorporation's microcosm. But now he is nothing, he is an exile. Only a poor soul with a lot of anger and a lot of dreams, the dream of one day being back in the game. So, his goal is to survive, of course, for 2 victory points. But before leaving the station, he wants to take advantage of this big mess to gather as much compromising information as he can to build the secret files he always needed to climb again to the top of the business hierarchy. 2 victory points for each compromat he owns at the end of the game. But only the compromat that matches surviving characters. There's no point in holding compromising information against people who will end up dying in the catastrophe. And in the end, the best information is against the mega corporation itself, isn't it? So 3 victory points if the Exile owns the evidence data and this data didn't reach the news on Earth because public information is worth nothing. Okay, that doesn't seem so difficult. And for the Exile, the game should be a race to catch all the compromats he can, and don't forget that he can also get compromats with other characters from his conspiracy. But compromats are almost as valuable to all other players, and on top of that, the Exile does all this for almost nothing, because to get his victory points, he must keep these compromats and cannot use them. Luckily, as soon as he reveals, he gets 2 powerful abilities that can help him a lot. First, he can indeed use a compromat to get a free action from his target character and get this compromat back to his hand, assuming that this character is not a revealed player character. And so, owning the Consort compromat, for example, he can do one action with the Consort every turn and still keep the compromat to earn 2 victory points if the Consort escapes by the end. Beware, don't forget that a player can use only 1 compromat per turn. And also with his second special ability, as an action, he can discard 2 compromats from his hand to take a compromat that was previously played by someone else on a non-player character. Beware, he cannot do that on a revealed player character. And so, with both these tools, he can optimize his compromat hand to get free actions and victory points. Fine. That being said, he has also 2 capabilities that can help. Like the Consort we already know, he's a smooth stalker, and provided he's in a lead section, he cannot be attacked by a human with a bludgeon. Rhetoric doesn't work on robots, and it's no match for a gun. And like the stowaway, he's a computer wizard and gets a free console action wherever this action is available, or everywhere in the station if the jammers are off. And now the so fashionable Billionaire and his cute little dog, Fletcher. At the beginning of the game, everything seems so quiet. The Billionaire lies in his luxurious suite, while Fletcher strolls through the security station. But as soon as they understand that the station is falling, their need to survive takes over money and fame, and dictates a single goal: escape and survive. 4 victory points if the Billionaire escapes, 2 if Fletcher escapes also. Note that it is enough that the dog escapes even with someone else, but still they get 1 bonus point if they escape together. And if the Billionaire escapes alone, with no one else but his dog, 1 more bonus point. If we are going to climb in this pod, we might as well not mix with lower classes, right? Fine. And so, first and foremost, the Billionaire is rich. At the beginning of the game, he gets 3 special grey bitcoins on his character's card. And it's very unusual, because regular bitcoins are attached to players, not characters. 1 bitcoin per player. Here, just because the Billionaire belongs to your conspiracy, even if he's not your secret identity, you can activate him and then use 1 of his grey bitcoins to bribe any other character. You use his grey bitcoin instead of yours. This doesn't count as an action, but still you must activate the Billionaire to do that. And just once, because you can spend only 1 bitcoin per turn. And so it's very likely that at the beginning of the game, players will rush to get the Billionaire into their conspiracy and spend his money like crazy. Beware, these bitcoins are not cash, they are more like vouchers. That's why they are worth 1 victory point in the end, like any other bitcoin, but only if the billionaire survives. If he doesn't escape in the end, all grey bitcoins are worth nothing in terms of victory points. And because he's rich, the billionaire cannot be bribed by other players' bitcoins, and bitcoins don't give him any victory points at the end of the game. Okay, thus, as you guess, the billionaire's bitcoin reserve will be rapidly depleted and not necessary to his benefit. But look, as soon as a player reveals the billionaire as his secret identity, he denies all his financial commitments and gets all his grey bitcoins back to his card, wherever they are. From this point on, he can spend them once again, and this time nobody else can activate him anymore. Also, the billionaire has a lot of internet followers down on Earth, eager to enjoy the spectacle of his dull daily life. But for now, they don't enjoy anything because of the jammers that blocks the broadcast of his live show. So, if the jammers are turned off, his show immediately resumes and the section the billionaire is in becomes always considered as lit with cameras on, whatever the actual status of onboard cameras. By turning the jammers off, the billionaire makes it much more difficult to attack him personally without becoming suspect. And this works also on the dog. With Fletcher in her inventory, the station chief's section becomes lit with cameras on. Fletcher is a square token, so it is an item. It can be picked up, dropped, thrown, given, and robbed. As an item, of course, Fletcher cannot be attacked. He cannot be down. And if it is thrown or dropped into a hazard or even into outer space, it has some kind of automatic helmet that protects it from any harm. Note that if the billionaire is your bonus character, you earn 2 victory points if Fletcher escapes, not the billionaire. It's a shame, sorry Mr. Billionaire, but it seems that your followers prefer the dog. And finally, the last character in this video, the Corpsicle. This poor old woman had been promised that she would not feel the duration of the space trip, deep frozen in her state-of-the-art cryogenic capsule. But, things being what they are, the station is falling to the earth and her cold coffin suddenly stopped working. She's old, she's not at her best, and in the cryolab she begins the game down. And as a down character, she cannot be activated. You can influence her, but if you want to activate her, you must first revive her. If a player activates her with a compromat, the power of the threat is enough to get her back on her feet. She's instantly revived. And also, if your secret identity is the Corpsicle, she's automatically and freely revived when you reveal her. And if she has been already revived by any other way, she gets a free action instead. So, the Corpsicle begins the game down, and that's what makes her quite unique. And if you want to use her in your conspiracy, you'll have to revive her with another character or by revealing her if she's your main character. If she's not, you can instead play a compromat. She owns an integral helmet. That is a helmet that no one can take away. Thanks to this everlasting helmet, she cannot be attacked or robbed with a bludgeon, and she doesn't fear hazards or outer space. If any player threatens her by using a compromat, this automatically gives her a bludgeon. She is vengeful and doesn't like to be threatened. Okay, all this is fine, but what does she want? She wants to survive, of course. She wants to escape the station. And note that she can escape while down. For example, in the medevac that needs a down character to be released. And because once frosted, twice shy, she'd feel better with some nanogel, plus 2 victory points. And then, she's not only a walking corpse, but also a human being willing to denounce the corporation's dangerous activities. So, 2 victory points if Secret X ends up on Earth, and 2 victory points if Project X is not released. And finally, because whatever you do, she'll never be in her right mind, she cannot be activated at all if she is exhausted. In other words, she cannot be activated if she begins her turn with an activation token already on her card. And she never gets free pickup or drop actions. And this is the end of this video. With my videos number 4 and 5, you know 24 characters. 24 out of 27. So, in my next video, I will introduce you to the 3 last oddities in my gallery, the legal robot, the digital assistant, and the one everybody's waiting for, the telepathic rat. And we'll take some time to look at all possible Project X and their special rules. Allez, à bientôt les amis, chez Jean-Michel Grosjeu.